So you're looking into green living and you want to reduce your energy, but you've been looking at all the things and you've got the basics down, right? You've got your reusable water bottle, you're using your reusable grocery bags. Hey, you may even have a tomato plant in a pot. Yep, you're doing it. You're doing green living. But then you get to those lists and they're talking about all the things you can do to have that more sustainable lifestyle. And then they start talking about some big ticket items, right? They talk about how you can go and turn off your appliances, which not terribly expensive, but then they get into things like, insulating your house. Totally cheap, right? Well, today on Wild Florida, we're going to talk about green living and how to reduce your energy and your energy costs through green living plants. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys today about green living. I mean, I think you guys can tell I'm all about conservation, not only from the growing your own food, but also when we talk about our native plants and the impact that they can have both on the environment and the habitats and the wildlife of our state. But we haven't talked a little bit about this angle, which is this green living, sustainable lifestyle, right? And I'm not going to go too far into all these things, but just hang in with me there because by the end of this, it's all going to relate back to gardening. So, when you hear about green living, they talk about things like reducing your waste, like reuse water bottles or, those reusable grocery bags or, turn off the lights when you're in your house. All good things, all good things. But there's a whole section of it that really starts talking about how you reduce your energy use or your carbon footprint. And the biggest thing that they talk about typically is if it's not about transportation, the next thing they talk about is how you reduce your energy in your home. And they may talk about things like turning off appliances or, turning off your lights. But when you really look at what it is that's going to cause the most impact for energy use, it really comes down to heating and cooling. So what they then next recommend is, re-insulate your house. And if you have a house, you know how cheap that is, right? Totally cheap. Only a few $1,000s or $10,000. Yeah, and you can re-insulate your roof too while you're at it. Oh, and replace your windows. Yeah, now you're only in 10, 20, 30 grand. Totally accessible, totally doable. So I want to talk to you guys today about how you can reduce your energy costs but also save money, right? I mean, if you're gonna go re-insulate your house, it's not gonna have a good return on investment. And I'm all about saving the earth while reducing costs, right? Right. So what I wanna talk to you guys today about is I'm gonna give you a little story about why I got looking into this, and then I'm gonna talk you through the numbers, the facts, because I'm all about the numbers and facts, because man, if we're gonna do a thing, we're gonna do a thing and make it make financial sense too, right? Right. Cool. Let's get into it. So back in 2017, like most Floridians, we were having our annual or every 2-year inspection of all the major trees on our property. And at the time, there were 2 queen palms that were on an electrical line and was like, they gotta go. But I knew there were some other big trees that had some big branches that probably needed to go. And I had this one pine tree that I was pretty sure was sick, but I didn't want to tell the arborist because I wanted to see what they said without me influencing their opinion. Because I figured some of them are just going to be like, oh yeah, it definitely needs to go, right? And I was like, I don't want it to go if it doesn't have a problem. So when they were going around my yard, yeah, they went around, they're like, cool, we'll take out your queen palms. But hey, that pine up front that's leaning over your house? Well, it's totally infected and is dying right now. And I was like, oh, cool. Great. And now that pine was on the southwest side of my house, so yeah, I knew that was gonna make my house a little bit hotter. And then they gave me the extra good news of hey, that laurel oak on the northwest side of your house, it's also sick and dying. Yeah, and it's gotta go if you don't want it to fall on your house during a hurricane. Yeah, so we had to have that taken out too. Oh yeah, and then they said this other pine on the south side of my house, it was dying too, but it wasn't sick enough yet that Pinellas County was gonna let them take it out. So yeah. Oh yeah, I just wanna let you guys know, I don't just try to have big trees taken out, and we definitely followed the permit process to get rid of those trees, and you have to prove that they're sick and dying. There went 2 giant trees from my yard like that. Then 3 months later, yep. So thank God those were taken out because then Hurricane Irma hit. But my neighbor's tree, he had a 40-foot sycamore. Well, it had a slight tilt. After Irma, it had a big tilt, and then it was actually gonna fall on his house. So his sycamore went, and there went the shade to the eastern side of my house. Yep, and the house started getting really hot. Oh yeah, and then 1 year after Irma, that pine, the one on the south side that was not sick enough and had probably a few years left, well, I looked up one day and all the pine needles were gone. And then just a few weeks later, all the small branches were gone. So we had to have that taken out. And just like that, in 1 year, I had 4 large trees that shaded my house totally gone. And my house started to get hot, really hot, especially where the master bedroom was, which was on the western side. And if you have a ranch style house, then you probably also know this problem, which is like the air conditioner is usually on one side, which can cause a little bit of an imbalance of the heating and cooling. So yes, we could drop our air conditioning temperature, but what started to happen is the kids' rooms were really cold and the master bedroom was still hot and the middle was just fine, but nobody sleeps out there. So what does that matter? Right? Right. So I started looking into stuff. First, I started looking into, do we need a second air conditioner? Do we need to, I didn't know. I was like, what else do we need to do? Do we need to re-insulate the roof? Do we need to add more vents? I don't know. But also I don't want to pay a lot more money and I don't want to increase our energy because like, right, we're trying to do good things for the earth and minimize our impact. So what do? Well, forget the air conditioning. And then just like those green living lists will tell you, is like, yeah, I could re-insulate my house, but do you know how expensive that is? That's like really expensive. You know, if I'm trying to avoid, and they'll say like, well, you can reduce your energy bill and by insulating your house. Yeah, you can reduce your energy bill by maybe like $10, $20, $30 a month, but you're gonna pay $10,000, $20,000. Do you know how long that's gonna take for you to recoup any sort of savings on that? You're not saving money, you just spent 10 to 20 grand. That's crazy, right? Okay. So I gotta put that in perspective because you gotta understand like what I was thinking. And I'm sure you guys are thinking too, because yeah, we wanna do better by the earth, but it's gotta make some financial sense. We don't have money trees just growing out our yard. Even if we are growing food, the money is not growing on those. What if when I did one of those like solar panel like reviews of my house before, I looked at it and they put in my address and put all the information and they're like, your house sucks for solar panels. But now those 4 trees are gone. So I'm like, maybe it won't suck for it. So I started to do the analysis again, and guess what? My house would be great for solar panels. And then I saw the price tag and I went, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? $25,000, $35,000. Oh, by the way, and it has a 20-year return on investment. And then at that point, you're probably gonna need new solar panels. So you basically got no return on investment because now you're just gonna be buying new ones. What? How is that good? And oh, by the way, that the solar panels cause like massive amount of pollution in the landfills and you can't even like recycle any of them. Really? I mean, so we went from being like, hey, maybe we could do a cool thing with solar panels to like, forget that. So then I was like, well, what if I plant another tree? Could that reshade it? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna take like 20, 30, 40 years to have any amount of impact. Oh, this is not gonna work. What do I do? And that's when I found this information. And that's the information I want to share with you guys, which is the facts about what plants can actually do for reducing your energy costs and cooling your house down. So let's talk about the impact that trees have. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff already out there on YouTube and in the newspapers about like sequestering carbon in trees, like plant trees and then we'll pull the carbon out of the environment and like, yay. Okay, it does that. That's true. There's also more things that trees do. So a large tree in your yard, if you look at the temperature underneath that tree and then you compare it to the street right nearby, right? And you take the temperature difference, it could be up to 23 degrees different. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. It could be 100 degrees over there in the street and it's gonna be, what, 77 degrees under your tree? I mean, hello, as a Floridian, I love 77 degrees. I hate 100 degrees. That's amazing, right? But those are those giant trees, right? And then I was looking some more into it. And yeah, if you have multiple trees, it can create what they call a microclimate, right? So we've talked about climates when growing plants and that like Florida is subtropical, tropical, and like you got in the rest of the country, temperate climates. But there's what's called microclimates. And your yard, a microclimate could be 1 foot by 1 foot. I mean, like this small. And a plant can create a microclimate, and they've found that a microclimate of trees and plants in somebody's yard can make that person's yard 6 degrees different than the surrounding area. 6 degrees. I mean, I'm just amazed. But I know I'm putting a lot of emphasis on it, but like, isn't that amazing? So like typically in our summers, we sit around the mid 90s, but to have it pushed down to like an 89, 88 degree day, ugh, I would love it. Love it. Instead of those mid 90s. I mean, it makes the difference. And as someone who works out in the yard a lot, not works out, but like works in the yard a lot, you know, 6 degrees is a huge difference. So I was like, cool. I mean, if a tree, okay, I don't have a giant tree, but man, if I had smaller plants that could change it by just even 6 degrees, that's huge. And then I read that you can start even getting an impact on your temperature of your house with just one tree that's 6 feet tall, spaced 10 feet away from your house. And you will already start getting benefits from that tree. Wow, that's amazing, right? But how much? So we need to get into a couple other facts, right? It's all about the facts here. Because when you look at, let's take it from a cost standpoint. So when you look at cost for a home or a family, the number one cost is your mortgage and rent. The next is food, which is why we grow food. But the next thing that comes for people that they have to pay for is utilities, with the biggest portion being their energy costs, whether they have gas or electricity. That portion is the biggest. And within that, when you look at energy, it's typically filled by either your cooling or your heating. So air conditioners and your heaters. Those are what are taking up the most amount of the cost of your utilities and have them some of the most impact on the environment. So the thing we're gonna wanna do then to reduce our costs for our house is reduce our energy through plants in heating and cooling the house. Now, I'm gonna spend more time on how you cool the house because, you know, I'm a Floridian and that's what we talk about. But I'm gonna talk a little bit about how you can use them to not heat your house, but insulate your house from cooling as rapidly in temperate climates. Yeah, I'm guessing you're wondering, but how much can plants really reduce your energy cost? Really? Yeah, well, there have been studies done by universities, and what they found is that properly placed plants can reduce your energy costs by 15% to 50% a month. That's huge! Is that not huge? That is huge. So if we can properly place, and because it's got such a great return on investment, because plants aren't typically as expensive, what they found, there was another study that was done, is that when they looked at costs of cities, for every dollar spent on plants, the city saved $2 to $3 in other expenses. So we can know that if we spend $1 on a plant, we should be expecting that in the long term, we should get $2 to $3 back for that cost. And because we're not a city and we're more of a small microclimate, we'll probably get a better return on investment. And the studies have also found that for every plant that you buy, the return on investment timing is 8 years. So, but it can be even faster than that. So it's just gonna depend on how you bought your plants. See, if you started things from seeds, I mean, the return on investment, the amount of money you're gonna save in the long run is gonna be a lot higher than if you bought maybe a large tree that was pretty big, right? If you're spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on that tree, it's gonna take a lot longer. But if you're getting like a small tree for 25 bucks, 35 bucks, or you even are able to start one from a seed or a transplant that's free, I mean, the minute it starts shading your house or blocking wind, you are winning. You are banking, right? Yes. So for my temperate climate friends, yes, trees can help you. So if you put trees, they said 2 to 3 times away from your house as the height of the tree, it can wind break. And you want to put it on the northwest side of your house to get the maximum effect, because really what the wind breaking does is it helps insulate your house from those cold winds that are coming from the frigid north. Now for us Southerners and for a lot of the country, to reduce your cooling costs, you want to plant trees on the south, southwest side, and western side. It's west of my house. So I started thinking about, how am I gonna go and get trees in my yard? All right, so what could I do that's gonna have the most impact the quickest? Well, since the master bedroom is on the western side of the house, I needed to start getting shade over there fast. And because I knew it didn't have to be a very big tree, then I started looking into, okay, so what kind of trees? And see, my yard really only goes about 10, 12, 15 feet from my house on the western side. So I didn't have a lot of space. And on the eastern side, I had even less available space. So what I started thinking about was what trees that could only they had to be small trees, or what we call bush trees. Like they're actually bushes, but you just shape them like a tree. So I started debating between flowers, and edible plants, right? And I was like, oh, it'd be so beautiful. Wake up in the morning, open the blinds and look out and see beautiful flowers. But then I thought to myself, and my husband and I were talking, well, we want to start growing food. So what wouldn't be better? We could get a win-win, you know, save money because we're reducing our energy costs, and then like maybe grow some food. And that's what's right behind me. That's actually what this garden started in. Our western garden was all about really starting to shade our house. And we tore up a bunch of bushes that were back here. And I ended up planting in this very small space, 2 mulberry trees, a avocado, a grand name banana, which is this guy over here. And then I got some dwarf Cavendish bananas also in here. And then up against the house, I've typically planted things like tomatoes to give some additional shade on the walls. And yeah, you can use shrubs too. So if you have a space that you can't get like a whole tree, you can still go and insulate it by using things like bushes. Bushes that get 5 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet tall up against your house will both windbreak it or help cool it from the sun. So how fast can it start having an impact? Well, these mulberry trees were like 3 feet tall when I got them. They were like little single sticks. Put them in the ground August 2018, and here we are in just early 2020, not even like a year and a half later, and they're 12 feet tall and a good 4 feet wide. And because the bananas are in between, they're already starting to shade the house. So when we're getting to that hot evening sun, they're already putting the shade. Now, are they above the roof line where they can start shading the roof? No, but they're having an impact. Like the house is cooler at night than it would have been a year ago. So you can already have that impact. And on the southern side of the house, I did plant some other trees. So I did take advantage of the flowering trees. So we put in a Gran Ponciana, we put in a Castilla Fistula, I put in a small crepe myrtle. And so we're gonna get our flowers in there, and then as they get bigger and bigger. So the Castilla Fistula is within that 10-foot range. So when it starts hitting 6, 10, 15 feet, it's gonna start shading that southern side of the house. The Gran Ponciana is gonna take me longer, but that's okay. But what I'm also doing is I'm putting shrubs up against the house. So I planted native firebush, which is great for pollinators. And if you're growing food, you need those native pollinators, right? You want to have a place where they can get their food, because then they're going to help make our food. So you can get that win-win of helping create like a little mini native wildlife habitat, increase your food, and insulate your house. So we're winning. Oh yeah, and native plants versus grass can hold 30% more water, which means that you'll have less erosion, create more topsoil. And if you're holding more topsoil and you're mulching, right, as your ground starts to come up 1 inch, 2 inch, right, that's insulating your house too. So you just can insulate all different ways. So use your ground cover, use your shrubs, use your small trees, use your big trees, and create a plan to reduce your overall temperature around your house by 6 degrees, and that will have a massive impact on your energy costs. So that's one way you can reduce your energy costs with plants. Are you in with that? Does that help you with green living and a more sustainable lifestyle? And do you want to hear more about green living? Because I can do some other topics that are related to, plants. If you do, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notification. New videos each week. We're going to, of course, continue on with things that are green living, like the Growing Food is Easy challenge, where we save money, go local, and save the world one piece of food at a time. We'll do Growing Food is Easy, of course, where we're going to have more plants that we can that are to grow, that are easy. And of course, there's a Victory Garden series, so you can increase food security, decrease costs in a time of crisis. And I don't know, there's so many things. And True Florida Native, where we can learn more about native wildlife, Florida. So yeah, we got all that. Don't miss that. I'll see you soon. Bye. Windbreaking.